About to catch up with the Mayor of Maribyrnong, Councillor Sarah Carter. Welcome to TheInformer, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you've been part of council for the better part of the last 12 years, one of the fastest growing corridors in the state. Are you getting the sort of support from state government that you need to do what you guys need to do in the council?
Yeah, certainly. It's changed. Local government has changed over the last decade, and the expectations of community, of local and state government, have changed accordingly. We have seen that this week. Interestingly, we've launched the Northwest City Deal, and I think this is a really important piece of work because too often all levels of government are accused of working in silos or in isolation, when really we need to be coming together on important issues such as accommodating the kind of growth that we're seeing in the West. And I guess the Northwest City Deal is a blueprint for that all levels of government have engaged on. So that's really encouraging, and I think it's great to see that partnership coming to fruition with other institutions within the community.
I was just going to say, you said that the council and its responsibilities have changed over the last 12 years. You do much, much more than just pick up the rubbish and attend to all the other things that people imagine that local councils do. I'm also aware that in this pandemic, there are many, many more requirements on you and your councillors, fellow councillors, to assist. What are the sorts of things that you've been having to do? And I can imagine there are so many things you can't do in the normal fashion, and you have to reach out and, go virtual.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a remarkable year, as it has for everyone, and really challenging. We've had to reforecast our budget 4 times, I'd say.
I noticed the rates are not going up in Maribyrnong. You've kept the rates down?
No, they're not. And it's something that we've spent a lot of time on. We were looking at, so obviously the local government minister sets the rate cap under the fair rate system, and that was 2%. And we were looking at taking that up and quarantining the full amount and redistributing it. But one of the things that was interesting to see when looking at data of who in the community is access JobKeeper and Job Seeker, trying to determine who is more in need during a pandemic when you are such a close level of government, it really highlighted to us that everyone is really doing it tough, whether you've had to outlay, for costs to homeschool kids, or whether your hours are reduced, or you've had to close a small business. Ultimately, it just wasn't appropriate, I felt very strongly, that we take up the 2% rate increase, and that has a knock-on effect, and we've had to look to that. Our own finances, the way things are going, we're looking potentially at the worst case scenario is a $20 million hit to our own budget. And we are a service delivery, essentially that's what we do. We provide 60 services to the community, and that's where we are so much more than roads, rates and rubbish, because it's a personal level of government. And during a time, and the pandemic has shone a light on this, but it's about community cohesion, and it's a really it's one of the things that I love about this level of government. But the need even for material aid has been great. We aren't in direct service delivery when it comes to domestic violence or material aid such as food and baby formula, but that's where we've found ourselves. But we have been able to respond because of those connections to community.
Have you had to pivot? We're talking to Councillor Sarah Carter, the Mayor of Maribyrnong. Sarah, have you noticed that whether or not you've had to pivot and retrain some staff to maybe do things that they weren't imagining they were going to do?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we did was identify, and we created what we call community connector roles. We did that very quickly, and we're able to redeploy staff there. And we have had to redeploy staff. Obviously, we've got community centres that are closed, libraries that are closed. We're able to take our libraries online. Stage 4 has put a halt to that, but immensely successful under stage 3 restrictions, that people can place an order and within 24 hours, usually the book's at their doorstep. So we've had to be agile.
So that was a service that was really appreciated.
Oh, it's so valuable. I mean, I personally haven't been to borrowed a book in a very long time. You'd be surprised how many people do. For me, it
Fantastic.
always is a surprise. And that's a service that it took some time, but we were able to do it quite quickly. And it's been highly valued. You know, people really value library services.
I really like the idea that you mentioned that although the Minister for Local Council had provided a 2% rise and capped it at 2%, you're not taking that increase up because you've looked at your demographic and said that these people are in need, we need to help them. I wish more councils were as progressive and open-minded and were listening and thinking along those lines, because so many of them have just put up their rates, taken the easy way out. I know, I understand that you need to make the money in order to pay to use it as well and spend it, but my goodness, there are so many people. Have you sensed it in the community, the tension, the rising anger and frustration that this lockdown has caused and is causing?
Absolutely. And I think the second lockdown in particular, the first one we had, you know, there were goalposts. There was a period of time, something of a novelty, I'll go as far as to say, about, okay, so we worked from home for a few weeks and an absolute trust that, you know, things were under control. I think the second lockdown, particularly on people's mental health, which is why our second support package is focusing on that one part of it.
Yep.
But I think the frustration, the fatigue, I read a really interesting article the other day about, you know, the human capacity, it's surge capacity. And it's the same, you know, during natural disasters, we have this fight or flight and we have a resilience. But during a protracted crisis, it's absolutely to be expected that we get tired and we get frustrated. And if we can't see the way out, and at the moment, stage 4 has obviously been pretty unpredictable for a lot of people, that it's just all wearing thin. So, and I'm quite often on the receiving end of some of those frustrations, but that's, you know, that's the job, and to respond to that.
Now, speaking of the job, there are local elections coming up. We're in a pandemic. People need to enrol. They've got a deadline and it's tomorrow afternoon. Are you trying to make it as easy as possible for people to enrol?
Absolutely. So the Electoral Commission, the enrolment's closed tomorrow at 4 p.m. to be able to vote.
Yep.
It's really important because obviously this campaign, this election cycle has been impacted, and there was discussions about deferring the election because right now candidates can't, you know, get out and speak to residents and advocate in the way that they would in campaign.
Or let a drop.
Yeah, we can't do any of that. So I think it's really challenging for those particularly that are running for the first time. And it's something that I've been involved particularly in getting women to run, and encouraging women to run in local government. But I'd encourage those that haven't checked their enrolment to make sure that they have, and also to take the time. It's one of the frustrations, you know, that there's so much misinformation social media, but to actually take the time to contact those people who are standing, you know, in the elections, and get to know what they're about, because we are much more than roads, rates and rubbish. Local government has a really important role to play, you know, in managing the infrastructure and facilitating livability. So I think it's a really important, I'm very passionate about this level of government, and I just think, you know, it's incumbent on everyone to make sure they're enrolled to vote, but also I'd urge people to take a real interest.
And can they do it online, or because of the physical component you've taken, you know, it's been taken away from us?
Yeah, so you can do that online. The Electoral Commission facilitates the electoral roll, and all the voting this time around, all councils have gone to postal voting, and so that'll be the 24th of October is the election day, but ballots will be sent out in early October.
Wow.
So there really isn't a long time between when you'll be hearing from candidates, say mid next month when we come out of stage 4, to the time that the community get to vote for their local elected representatives. Look,
I really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to join us and to give us a bit of insight behind the thinking at the Maribyrnong Council. It's 12 years. May you continue to enjoy what you do, and we wish you good health and stay safe.
Thank you very much. And You too.
No worries
Thank
at all. Councillor Sarah Carter, the Mayor of Maribyrnong.